exciting. I will take this. And you're streaming. Okay. I would like to start the Southbury Board of Selectmen regular meeting Thursday, March 19th, 2020, to order at 7 p.m. If we could have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the United States of America,
America,
for which it
and to
stands,
the republic
one
for
nation,
which it stands,
under God,
one nation,
indivisible,
and
with liberty and justice
liberty.
for all.
justice as well.
So this will be a little bit different than our normal meeting, obviously. Um, so bear with us. I just want to remind the board who's in on this call to remember protocol. I'll recognize you, and we'll do roll call votes so that it's clear who voted. I will start off with announcements and correspondence and the declaration of an emergency. And you have your COVID 19 Southbury update. Uh, on D is reports. You have your reports in front of you. We'll move on to E, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Justin, Betty.
Justin, Betty, go ahead.
Jeff, I'd like to make a motion that we remove Bob Harrison's appointment from the consent agenda in part so that Emily will be able to vote on the rest of it. And also, I think it needs some discussion.
It's Mike Rosen, Jeff.
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
I would second that.
You're seconding that. So we're going to, the motion on the floor is to remove the Bob Harrison part of the appointments from the consent agenda so that we can vote on the rest of the consent agenda. Is that correct? Justin?
Correct.
Okay.
This is Justin. That's correct.
Mike? Mike Rosen?
That is correct. That's
you had
correct. I
seconded.
second that. Yep.
Any other, any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, could you state your name? We'll start with George Bertram.
No.
We'll,
George Bertram said no.
George Bertram said no to removing it from the appointments. Justin Betty,
I'm a yes.
Mike Rosen,
Yes.
Jason Bucksbaum,
Yes.
Emily Harrison,
I can just recuse myself from that portion of the consent agenda, so no.
you are recusing yourself from this vote?
I think that's in my best interest.
Okay, so you're recusing yourself from this vote because you are related to Bob Harrison. Okay. I will vote in the affirmative to remove the appointment of Bob Harrison, moving up from there. Okay, so it passes that will be separate. Do I have a motion to accept the rest of the consent agenda for a vote?
Jason Bucksbaum, so moved.
Justin Betty, second.
Okay, any further discussion on the consent agenda? Okay, roll call, all in favor. Jason Bucksbaum,
Yes.
Mike Rosen,
Yes.
Justin Betty,
Yes.
George Bertram,
Yes.
and Emily Harrison,
Yes.
and the Jeff Manville, Selectman, I will vote yes. So the consent agenda passes. Next up is the request to move Bob Harrison from alternate to full member on the board on the planning commission. I would assume, Emily Harrison, you're going to recuse yourself?
I'm recusing myself for a family conflict.
I understand. Do I have a motion to move Bob Harrison from alternate to full member on the planning commission?
George Bertram, I'll move that.
Do I have a second?
Jason Bucksbaum, second.
Okay.
Justin Betty.
We've had a made and second. Any discussion?
Justin Betty.
So I'll call, bear with me. I think I'm,
Jeff?
so I'm calling
hear
the
me?
vote? No.
Justin Betty wants to talk.
Okay. Go ahead, Justin. Sorry.
Jeff, I just want to be very clear that, I don't have a problem with Bob serving. I think he's been a great servant to our town. My concern is with timing. Obviously, we're all aware of the very odd situation we have going on between the town and the planning commission at the moment, with litigation ongoing. And I'm just wondering if it wouldn't make more sense to seat somebody else now and leave Bob as an alternate until that situation is fleshed out and finished.
Anybody else for discussion?
Yeah. Mike Rosen?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I would concur. I really admire the service that Bob's given to the town. But the fact that, that the role that Cindy has played, especially as sort of as a representative of Town Hall and of the First Selectman's office during, what's been going on with the discussions between the town specific to the fuel tank issue, and other issues, frankly, I do think that now the timing wouldn't be right to move him up to that role. I think that it would, there is a potential conflict there, and I think that we'd be better served to not do so right now.
Okay, George.
I don't really see a conflict here. I think Bob has served very well on this commission. He's got experience. We've just lost our chair. Ed Hatfield has resigned. We need people with experience. I've never seen Bob show anything close to a conflict in anything he's done. I just don't see an issue there, so I would support his advancement into the full-time role.
I am inclined to agree. Mr. Harrison has always, and when it came to the vote, had recused himself, so there was no, it didn't show that there was a conflict for the record on the vote. And he has served there in that as an alternate for quite some time, and we need to make sure we have people. There's other matters coming before planning And like I said, we have lost our chair, and we are needing people to step up and be available as they move up. I have not seen any conflict of interest so far in how in the planning commission with Mr. Harrison. So I don't think it's a problem. We have a lot of other things that we need to move forward, so I think we should move him up. Any other discussion?
Jason Bucksbaum.
Yes, Jason.
I haven't really thought about that, the conflict issue that was raised. Certainly, I don't, I mean, this is an elected board, right? Planning, so I believe he was elected to the alternate position, so if there's a general conflict issue, I assume it would have been raised previously. So I haven't read the conflict ordinance, and I haven't thought about this issue until this moment. I don't think there's a general conflict with serving on planning. He did recuse himself from the fuel tank vote. So has there been any discussions with him about whether he would continue that recusal going forward as a full member of the commission?
I think that he's already recused from himself from the vote on that. So I think he showed that before. I don't know why that should change going forward on the voting on the fuel tank issues and in that regard. So
Okay.
I'm
sorry.
He did recuse himself from the vote so that there was no. It didn't look like there was any conflict or issue with it, and he's already done that once, so I don't anticipate a real change in that.
Jason Bucksbaum.
Go ahead, Jason.
I'm trying to think of what I was going to say. So that's fine. Would it deal with the concerns? I don't like, if people raise conflict issues, I think we should address it so there's no appearance or no issues going forward. So because I think Bob's been an excellent member of the Planning Commission and in other capacities in the town, so I wouldn't want any sort of cloud over that based on comments tonight. So to put that to bed, would it make sense just to make this vote subject to a look over by the town attorney for him to just confirm, yep, no conflict, so it's all sort of done with?
Sir, we can do. We certainly. Okay, Jeff
Do
Manley.
we clean it up?
You all set, Jason?
Yeah. George Bertram, I have
Go
a
ahead,
comment
George.
if I have. I think it's problematic to me to look forward and think about potential conflicts of interest that might occur in the future between a board member or a commission member and whatever issue they might be dealing with. It could be anybody on the commission that is subject to a conflict of interest. So to subject Mr. Harrison to some extra scrutiny when he's already recused himself on this particular issue, I just don't see a need for it.
So,
Mike Rosen?
Mike, go ahead.
Did you want to go, Jeff?
Mike, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So I'd be much more comfortable in Jason's direction because this isn't. I don't think this is looking forward. It's based on experience, not only with the role Cindy plays as a proxy to the first selectman and as a representative of the first selectman's office, with commissions in general, but specifically in this latest issue, but also with Emily's role on the board of Selectmen. There are two, there's a lot of family issues there, and I'd be more comfortable with a recommendation and from town council on that front. So that's one. My second issue, Jeff, comes to some complaints I heard from multiple members of the Planning Commission this week, as I'm the liaison to the commission, that they were told that their meeting was canceled when a majority of members of the commission wanted to have that meeting.
Mike?
Yeah?
We can bring that up under new business if you'd like to discuss that.
So why isn't that it's directly related to this conversation?
No, this is about whether Mr. Harrison should be moved up. It's nothing to do with the cancellation of the planning commission meeting. He had nothing to do with that. So it's not the topic. So if you want to return to the topic of discussing a conflict of interest, I will say this. If there's a conflict of interest, the planning commission can vote to and state the reasons why they believe there's a conflict of interest with a board, a commission member. And that's how that can be handled if a planning commission individual of anybody was to perceive to be in a conflict of interest on a vote at a meeting. They can bring it up, excuse me, and they could vote on it. And we can also refer it to the Ethics Commission and the town attorney. So having him moved up on the board, if there is any matter that comes before the planning commission, it can be dealt with at that time, whatever the particular matter is. So it could be it's a conflict of interest, and they can move an alternate up for that purpose. So I don't see a problem with doing that. So Mike, you want to say? Mike?
Yeah, my thing is I don't want to put Bob in, or I don't want to put Bob or frankly any of the other current members in that potential position. So if we could get just if we could just get confirmation from town council that he doesn't believe that there would be any issue. You're right. Any book commission could do what you just said, but I don't want to put Bob or the members in that position if we could just get that guidance from town council and simply postpone this until next time until we hear that from him. I'd feel much more comfortable doing moving forward with it then.
If there's a conflict of interest for whatever matter comes before planning, it will be dealt with, I see it as an individual, whatever it is, whether it's perceived as the fuel tanks or whether it's another matter. I don't see any reason not to move this alternate up to be a full member on the planning commission, as long as when it's a conflict of interest for a matter coming before the commission, they declare it's a conflict of interest or recuse themselves, or the planning commission can vote that they feel this is a conflict of interest and that the members should recuse themselves. That's a procedural matter, and I don't see there's any issue with doing that. Again, if the member refuses, that can be, but I don't think that's going to happen. But there's no reason not to move him up.
George Bertram.
Go ahead, George.
I agree with you, Jeff. I don't see any reason to delay it. I think there's any number of potential conflicts of interest that could occur between a planning commission member and any particular issue that they're voting on. And I don't see a need to subject Mr. Harrison to additional scrutiny or legal review. I don't see an issue here. He's acted responsibly in the past. He did recuse himself on this particular issue with the fuel tanks, which I think was a responsible thing to do, for him anyway. And I would support his movement forward. I think he's been a very productive member on the committee. He's done a good job, and I can't see subjecting him to the stigma of a legal review at this point.
Anybody else? I'll call the vote. All in favor of moving alternate Robert Harrison up to full member of the Planning Commission?
George Bertram with a yes.
George Bertram's with a yes. Jason Bucksbaum?
Yes.
Mike Rosen?
I'm a no. I'm
Mike
very
Rosen?
begrudgingly. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm
Yep.
voting no, and but I'm doing it begrudgingly because I think Bob deserves it. I just would like to hear from town council.
So your vote is a no.
I voted
Justin
no.
Betty?
Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to be a no as well. This isn't about Bob Harrison. It's about the unique situation we're in with the lawsuit. And for that reason, with failing any other advice from council, for now, I'm gonna be a no.
Okay. And I'll vote in the affirmative to move him up. It's 3-2, and I believe that passes. Okay. Next on the agenda is transfers. Do I have a motion for approval of the transfers?
So
George
moved.
Bertram.
Oh, sorry, George.
Oh, wait a
Go
minute.
ahead.
Wait.
Whatever.
Protocol.
I got protocol. Apologize. George, you go ahead.
George, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the transfers as written.
Mike Rosen, please.
Mike Rosen will second.
Mike Rosen seconded. Any discussion? Hearing another, I'll call the vote. George Bertram,
Aye.
Jason Bucksbaum,
Aye.
Emily Harrison,
Aye.
Justin Betty,
Aye.
Mike Rosen,
Aye.
and Jeff Manville. I'll vote affirmative also. It passes. Bids and procurements. Do I have a motion?
Emily Harrison, so moved.
Can I have
George
Mike?
Bertram,
George?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Hearing none. George Bertram. I'll call the vote. George
I
Bertram?
vote yes. Aye, yes.
Okay. Jason Bucksbaum.
Yes.
Emily Harrison.
Aye.
Justin Betty.
Aye.
Mike Rosen.
Aye.
And Jeff Manville, the affirmative. Okay. That passes on business and procurements. Minutes of the March 5th, 2020 regular meeting. Do I have a
Mike
motion
Rosen.
to accept?
Mike Rosen,
Mike Rosen, go ahead.
make the motion to approve.
Can I have a second?
Jason Bucksbaum, second.
Thank you, Jason. Any discussion on the minutes of March 5th? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. George Bertram,
Aye.
Jason Bucksbaum,
Aye.
Mike Rosen,
Aye.
Emily Harrison,
Aye.
and I've run out, I'm sorry, I'm drowning. Justin Betty.
I'm an aye too.
It's been a very long day, and it passes. Okay, under new business, declaration of emergency by the Board of Selectmen. So, as you know, I have declared a state of emergency, and I believe that only gives us a certain amount of time. And I think it's pretty obvious that this is going to be more than that amount of time. And you have the letter from a town attorney and the proposed resolution. Do we have that for the? Okay, so it's up on the screen. Would you, I would entertain a motion on the proposed resolution that is on the screen, so we could put it up for
Jason
discussion.
Buck,
Name,
Jason Buck, so
Jason,
moved.
Jason Bucksbaum.
Emily
Mike Rose.
Harrison, second.
Okay. So please state your name if you'd like to discuss it. Jason, would you like to start?
Sure. So I took a look at our ordinances, and it's sort of a strange thing. This first selectman can declare a state of emergency, but it expires in 7 days. And then the Board of Selectmen can continue it for another 7 days. And I had thought that the Board of Selectmen could continue it on successive 7-day periods, but it actually doesn't read that way. And obviously we all know, and I confirmed that with Jeff Tinley today too, because I was talking to him about some other issues. Obviously, I think we all know this is going to last longer than 7 to 14 days. So I'll just make two comments. One, when the state of emergency ordinance was passed in town, I recall part of the discussion and the reason for the 7-day limitation was because the board wanted to make sure the first selectman came back and consulted with the board and didn't give the first selectman sort of blanket authority. So I think one of the things we need to do after this emergency is done with is we need to relook at that ordinance to fulfill that intent that was originally intended, because I agree with it, but it needs to have more. There needs to be, it needs to be more malleable. You need to be able to extend it more than you can, and under the current ordinance, you could only extend it 7 days. The other note I'll make is emergency ordinances expire in 60 days. So I don't think we need to put that in here. We talked about that this afternoon too, but I think I just want to let everyone know that this ordinance is going to expire in 60 days, regardless of any of the conditions set forth. And, you know, hopefully we're not still in a position where we need to revisit that at that time, but I just mentioned it. Thanks.
Thank you, Jason. Anybody else
Mike-
state your name first, please?
Mike Rosen.
Mike Rosen, please go ahead.
For two points for those who are listening at home who might not have pulled up though the website to have all the materials. Should Jeff, would you want to read the proposed resolution just so people understand the language? That's one. Two, before we take a vote at least. Two, on part one of the resolution, termination of the national emergency declared by the President of the United States and the state of emergency declared by the Governor of the state of Connecticut. What if one of them is terminated and one of them is not? Because if I'm not mistaken, I believe the state declared a state of emergency before the national state of emergency was declared, and I could be mistaken. And Jason, I sort of asked Selectman Bucksbaum from a legal perspective. I don't know if that matters, but what if one happens and the other doesn't?
Emily Harrison.
Go ahead, Emily.
Just to Mike's point about others being able to, if they didn't have this up but are streaming, this can be viewed on the screen and read that way, just as a reminder.
Oh, that's good. I didn't.
Hold on, Emily. Go ahead. Could you state that again?
Yeah, it's just a reminder for those. Mike had mentioned that he requested you to read this for those that were streaming, but I just wanted to remind everyone that what we're seeing is being streamed for everyone else. So if the public is streaming this, they have the ability to read the resolution.
Correct.
Mike Rosen.
Mike Rosen, go ahead.
Thank you, Emily.
So if I could just take a minute and we read, on March 10th, 2020, the governor declared a state of emergency. March 13th, 2020, the President of the United States declared a state of emergency, which invoked the Stafford Act. Just so that you know that. Any other discussion? State your name, please.
Jason Bucksbaum.
Jason, go ahead.
Jason Bucksbaum. Just responding to Mike's comment and inquiry. As it reads, if there's a termination of the national and the state emergency, then by operation of the words in here, then ours is lifted as well. If one is terminated and not the other, then ours is not lifted. But then I think you go down to, let's say Governor Lamont lifts his, but the president doesn't lift his because something's going on in other states, not impacting Connecticut for some reason. We always have the catch-all in Section 3, which allows the Board of Selectmen to lift it.
Oh, thank you, Selectman Bucksbaum, for your guidance. I do appreciate that. Do I have anybody else who would like to discuss? State your name,
George
please.
Bertram,
Go ahead, George Bertram.
what powers do you get from this, Jeff? I have not spent much time reading the ordinances, but I'm just curious if I could get a quick summary of what additional powers you would now have under a state of emergency that you did not have previously.
There's the power to spend money for the emergency is mostly what that's about.
And what is the cutoff? Is there a limit?
I don't know if there's no limit. We're going to have to figure that out as we go ahead, what the costs are going to be. Right now, there's no money appropriated other than is in the current budget. So if the money was to be, if it was not to be handled within the current budget, money would have to be appropriated outside of that. Similar to what we did with the tornado.
Well, I remember with the tornado, we had a emergency meeting and we appropriated a fairly large chunk of money. It was like $169,000, I think, at that meeting. But we're not doing anything like that here, as far as I know.
Not yet. Jason, if you have any input on that?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the ordinance real quick. There was some language. Just give me a minute. Yeah, so Section D6 of the ordinance says that, gives the first selectman power to expend public funds from appropriations made for such purposes. And then George also, there's a whole list of things in here in the ordinance that lays out the powers. But on the appropriation front, what the ordinance permits is you to expend public funds from appropriations made for such purposes. At this point in time, I don't think there's been any appropriations for this matter. I think the board would have to appropriate money as we go. There's money in the budget elsewhere, and we're going to get into this when we talk about Scott's contract next. I think there's probably money in professional services line items for now and stuff like that that can pay for those things. But if those line items run out, I think the Board of Selectmen would need to make transfers from contingency or elsewhere to deal with expenditures as they come up.
Correct. I'm sorry,
Thank
anybody
you.
else? Name, please. Okay. So I think we have a motion and seconded on the table. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call a vote. George Bertram,
Aye.
Emily Harrison,
Aye.
Jason Bucksbaum,
Aye.
Justin Betty,
Aye.
Mike Rosen,
Aye.
and the Jeff Manville will vote affirmative also. So that resolution passes. Okay. Next up is the contract with S2 Resilience Group LLC. As you know, this is a company that had been formed a while ago by the Deputy Emergency Management Director in his professional life. So I'll open it up for discussion. Give me your name, please. Wow. I guess
Jason Bucksbaum.
we'll ask, go ahead. Do you want to
Uh,
make a motion?
Jason, I have some questions about the contract.
You have some questions?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Jason.
First off, has it been reviewed by town council?
Yes,
Okay, he's fine with it.
he's fine with it, yes.
Can you explain why the effective date is not today and it's Monday?
Just a procedural date when his firm will be officially starting.
So the expectation that payments are starting as of Monday
Correct.
of this week?
Correct.
This past Monday?
No,
Okay.
this Monday, the March, on March 7th, what's Monday? I'm sorry. March 16th, yes.
Okay.
Starting March 16th. They're not looking for back pay. Any other questions?
Emily
Yeah,
Harrison?
Emily Harrison, go ahead.
Sorry, Jeff, I'm just confused. You said they're not looking for back pay because if it starts on the 16th, that would be back pay. Or are we talking
No,
about
starting on the 16th,
the
the
previous
contract.
Monday, the 16th, or the Monday, the 23rd?
Monday, I'm sorry. Monday, the 16th, the day we open the EOC. I'm sorry, I'm stand corrected. Let me just look at okay, because today's the 19th. Yes, Monday, March 16th, when we open the emergency management operation. Sorry about that.
Jason Bucksbaum?
Yes, Jason.
Yeah, I have some other questions. When we spoke on Sunday, we had discussed getting the Board of Finance involved and inviting them tonight. I'm just curious if there's been any discussions with members of the Board of Finance concerning this.
I have not discussed with the Board of Finance, but I have discussed with with Dan Colton.
So as this goes forward, so this contract, as I read it, is a 30-day contract, and it could be terminated at any time, and then it could be extended on whatever terms and conditions we all agree to. And I think for that second round, if necessary, we should include the Board of Finance in that discussion.
I would agree.
And then on Article 2, the term of the contract, picking up on that point, the last section says the term may be extended on such terms as the town and the service provider agree to in writing, signed by the service provider and by the Board of Selectmen. I think it should also say, and as approved by the Board of Selectmen. Would there be any, I think, would there be any issue with that?
The term may be extended on such terms as the town and the service provider agree to in a written signed by, and the service provider agreed to in a written signed by the service provider and by the selectmen. I would say here that the terms as the town would be the Board of Selectmen, and that the signature would be the service provider and my signature. So I would, for the record, say that I would take that in such terms as the town and the service provider. The town would mean the Board of Selectmen. Is that okay? for the record?
Yeah, and if that's your interpretation, and we all agree that it is Jason Buxbaum, and we all agree that it's the interpretation. I mean, it's not clear, which is why I suggested we make it clear that it has to be approved by the Board of Selectmen. That's
So
all.
I think for the record, it's with this meeting and the record that I would, I would say that that's the understanding. I don't know, Jason, if we could just vote to make it that that's the understanding of that term in that contract?
Sure. Or we can just add words to the contract. I
Okay,
mean,
so you're, a little pun here, you're the wordy person here. Okay, and that's for fun and a joke. If you would,
lawyers like more words.
so if you could, so I would say there should be another sentence in there after by the first selectman. How do you want to do this?
I would say the term may be extended on such terms as the town, acting through its Board of Selectmen, and the service provider agreed to in a writing signed by the service provider and the first selectman. That's what I would say. After the word town, I would add acting through its Board of Selectmen.
Do we have to vote on that? We can.
I think if we have like consensus to make changes as we go, then it would be incorporated into whatever vote we take at the end.
Okay.
Mike Rosen?
Mike Rosen, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable with that. Let's go through it. If we make changes, then we could vote at the end to accept it with changes as discussed.
Okay. So that will be one change that we would make to that contract when we vote on it. Any other discussion?
Jason Buxbaum.
Go ahead, Jason.
On the fees, it says $1,200 per day, and then it talks about partial days being prorated. Can you just describe how we're capturing this, how we're defining a day, how hours are being calculated, and all that?
Yeah, I do have Scott Furr here to address that.
This is Scott Furr, Managing Partner, S2 Resilience Group, LLC. Selectman Bushbond, to address that, essentially, it's whatever the first selectman needs for the EOC operations and to gather data. I don't want to pin it down strictly to an 8-hour day because things happen at night, as was evidenced to some of the email traffic last night, some of the coordination that goes on with the Pompano Health Department. When we have the EOC meetings, everybody gets taskings and goes out and does work, and then as we collect more things through the evening, those get collated and rolled up also. So to limit it to an 8-hour day is disingenuous to the town, but at the same time to say, okay, it's got to be 12 to 14 hours, we can't do that either because then we get burned out. It stretches usually from minimum of 8 in the morning till probably about 10 o'clock at night. But I don't really want to put an 8-hour day on there because then it's like, okay, well, somebody could say you only work an 8-hour day. And I don't normally do that. My business partner doesn't do that. We're currently going through some of the data we're gathering today on some of the stuff that happened in Italy. Now, most of the contract was written by the town attorney. He took some of our wording and pretty much shortened the whole contract and rewrote most of it. So most of the wording in there you see is his. He's the one that added in there about the breakdown of the day and the times, other than a full day. So we can break that down by an 8-hour block if you want for 1,200, or we can go 10 hours. But that partial days will be pro rata based on an 8-hour day was his language.
Jason Buxbaum.
Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, no, thanks, Scott. And and let me sort of clarify the question, I guess. That's the way I read it. I read it as it's $1,200 a day, and it covers everything. It doesn't matter, the hours of the day and whatnot, and there needs to be flexibility in that. So I'm not suggesting there should be like a, you work from X time to X time. It's more the second half talks about partial days will be prorated. As I read it, and tell me if I'm wrong, as I read it, this is gonna, there's probably gonna be really long days, and there's probably gonna be some days that may not be as long. So as I read it, if you have a 6-hour day, then the fee for that day is $900 and not $1,200. That's the way I read that partial day section, unless I'm reading it wrong. So I was trying to understand how we determine what a partial day is.
No, I see what you're saying now.
You understand my point?
Yeah, I do. To be honest, the only partial day I really see is the day the EOC closes. And I'm not saying that really tongue-in-cheek either, because the stuff is changing by the minute. And I think for the most part, the next 30 days are going to be 12-hour days, with probably going back down to 8-hour days. But still, we're not going to be. Once we start getting to that point, the staff of the EOC will be reduced. So in effect, what you're doing is letting the staff go back to their normal day-to-day operations in the town, but you're still keeping the EOC open to cover a time frame. So again, I see what you're saying now, and I think I'm in agreement to you. I don't know if we want to strike, or if your intent was me to strike the partial days, because I don't see a partial day being done until the last day of the EOC. Kind of like with the tornado, when, okay, the last day of the EOC, we're like, okay, we got most of this wrapped up and we're going back to normal operations. And on one of the
Jason
other,
Buckman?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Jason, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I thought you were done. I'm
No,
sorry.
no.
Go ahead. It's hard not seeing.
Yeah, there is a slight delay built into this. Going back to the emergency declared and kind of bringing that into this right here, the state of Connecticut, I think, we will be done with our operations before they get out of their emergency operations. So we'll begin to see, and that will be a demand signal, if you will, when the state starts talking that they are starting to come out of the emergency and return to normal. Then we'll start to see, okay, if we aren't already there yet, we should be sending people back to their normal job in the town full time, and not even coming into the EOC virtually or physically at all. So you'll start to see that will be the demand now. We go down to the partial day. But again, I think the partial day is going to be the day before or the day that we cease operations in the EOC.
Jason, go ahead.
Jason? Yes. Okay. No, I understand. I wouldn't strike the language. I know right now it seems there won't be any partial days, but maybe on the back end of it or something, and that sort of gives the I guess the opportunity. I'm just looking out for the taxpayer funds, because it's an expensive contract. So I was just curious, the reason for my question, how that was all being evaluated. Now, do you anticipate this being, and I know your answer, but a lot of my questions oftentimes are geared towards fleshing things out so the public could understand what went into this. Are you anticipating this being a 7-day week operation?
I am. This is going to go 7 days a week until we get to the end. And the reason for that is things are changing day by day. We're already analyzing some of the latest news coming out and trying to anticipate what actions we're going to have to take when the federal authorities make other announcements. The issue becomes they're going to be planning they're working almost 24 hours a day, I can tell you right now, in Washington, D.C., and some of the contacts I have down there. They're making a planning session at night. They're executing the day. During the day, they're making another planning session to execute that night. We're having to be reactive to everything they do. So I can't shut the EOC down over the weekend. I can reduce the staff because you're not going to have some of the staff working in the town offices. But I still need to run that EOC to make sure that we don't miss anything and react to anything 48 hours after it happened.
Okay, Jason Bucksbaum.
Go ahead, Jason.
So my next question is, Article 5 talks about expenses. When this idea was floated on Sunday, part of our discussion was your company it's pretty much going to come in, run everything. You have the resources. You said you had a computer, whatever. So I'm curious what expenses you might envision, because my understanding was there probably wouldn't be any.
At the current time, I don't anticipate any expenses at all. We're using the town's infrastructure on the internet itself, and that's the main expense which the town already has. We don't, we're not coming in buying any equipment. We're trying to utilize everything that's there right now. There might be a small subscription for a streaming service or something like that, but I don't anticipate anything, to be honest. Over.
So if I may, Jason,
Yep.
Jeff Manville here. I think the $100 is kind of a nominal in case they need to pick something up quickly. Even if it was to be on the weekend, anything above that will probably would be run through our fiscal office and through me. So I think it's just a nominal, my understanding, just a nominal amount of money. Anybody else
Thank you.
put your name? Anybody else? Okay, so if nobody else is wanting to speak on this, I will entertain a motion to allow the first selectman to enter into this contract with the change suggested by Selectman Bucksbaum as from the town acting through its board of selectmen be added to that contract for signing. Do I have a motion?
Mike Rosen?
Mike Rosen made the motion. Can I have a second? Name?
Richard Bertram?
George Bertram made the second. Any discussion on this? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. George Bertram,
Aye.
Emily Harrison,
Aye.
Jason Bucksbaum,
Aye.
Justin Betty,
Aye.
Mike Rosen,
Aye.
and it's approved. Okay.
You have to vote, Jeff. Mike Rosen.
Mike Rosen, go ahead.
I don't think you formally voted on that.
Oh, I apologize. If for the record, I voted affirmative.
Jason Bucksbaum?
Yes, Jason.
Sorry, I meant to mention this. I mentioned it when we were talking about the declaration of emergency. As far as the appropriations, am I correct that this is going to be this money is going to be paid out of money allocated for professional services within the budget currently?
Currently, and we may go to contingency, depending.
So we may need to not tonight, but we may need to appropriate funds at some point or transfer funds or.
We may have to, but wait, Cindy, can you come up to the mic? Cindy Harrison will speak to that.
I spoke with Dan Colton, and at this point, we'd like to take it. It'll probably come out of professional services at this point, and wait and do an appropriation when we have a better idea of what we need to accumulate all at once. It would make his financial reporting work better.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. First Selectmen's report. Obviously, I have not prepared a report with everything that's been going on. I just want to say that the town hall staff has been dealing with many issues and changing, and I want to thank the town hall staff for all that they're doing and in this difficult time. I appreciate the support from the Board of Selectmen on this. And we will look in the next couple of weeks. We'll probably have a better idea of what we're going. We are going to try and keep things operating as much as possible. There are certain things that have to happen, and we are going to, in the town clerk's office and some other meetings that have to take place, and this is probably going to be the new norm for a couple of months. So I hope that both the public and the board will bear with us. We're going to work on some of the technology and hopefully still be able to move a lot of other things that we are trying to move forward in the town, including budgets and things of this nature forward. So it's been a long day. Do we have any other reports from liaisons? I'll start
George
with
Bertram,
George Bertram. Go ahead.
there's been a lot of work on the Edgewood project. I could go into a lot of detail, but I'll defer on that. And instead of getting into everything, what I would like to ask is, do we have a firm date on the budget referendum?
No, we do not.
Okay. That is kind of important to know because we have a public informational meeting that we'd like to schedule. And it'd be nice to know where the referendum is going to be in the calendar so we could schedule appropriately.
Okay, George, you can call in to my office tomorrow, and we'll try and go over how that might be handled with the referendum. We don't frankly know when the referendum. We don't have a firm date. They're moving it out, but we're working on that. Go ahead.
In any case, we have. Go ahead, Jeff.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
George.
We haven't slowed down on the Edgewood project at all. We did have a meeting with Susie Jones today talking about transition plans if we do take ownership. And she did mention that she would fix the items on the building inspection report that were noted as deficient. We're still planning for an open house at the pool for public inspection in the first week of May on a date just prior to the potential May 6th referendum, although that is not, as you say, the May 6th date might move. There's been extensive collaboration with Hugh Sullivan and Jennifer Duckworth to get estimates on the rebuild of the Ballantine Pool House. We do have quotes from one company on building the pool, but not the pool house, and we have quotes from a second company potentially coming in next week, also related to the rebuild of a pool at Ballantine, but not the pool house. We're going to have to get a separate estimate on the pool house, and that's in the works. What I can tell you now is that based on the architect's review, the Ballantine Pool House is not currently ADA compliant. It's not even close. It only has about a third of the bathrooms required. The septic system at Ballantine also won't be able to handle an increased number of bathrooms. It's just not sized for that. Parking could also be an issue. We're going to check the zoning regs. Parking, I believe there's 55 spots at Ballantine, and I don't think that's enough, but I don't know for sure yet. We will get a written report from the architect, hopefully next week. We did receive a clarification of the estimates from Weston and Sampson. We have a better understanding of what they were quoting when they gave us some estimates on the rebuild and on building a new pool at Ballantine. We did have a meeting with a pool company today at Ballantine to talk about the rebuild cost. And what else can I say about that? There needs to be a joint Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen meeting to review and approve a potential referendum question. I have that written as April 1st as a potential date, but again, if the referendum moves, then that date might move. I don't know, Jeff, if anyone submitted an 824 for planning on Edgewood. I don't know what the timing would be. I think it's a 30-day thing, but that's up to you guys. Does anyone have a question about the Edgewood project at this point?
George, contact
No.
me. This is Jeff. Contact tomorrow. We can get that referral to planning. The difficult. This is one of the reasons why the planning commission is going to have to meet, and it'll be set up similar to this, where there's only a few people in the room that need to be here to operate, and they call in just the same manner as we're doing here. So we're going to look to get that set up.
As far as the mobile telecom upgrade project, a lot of work's been done, mostly by Joe Ruggiero. He did contact the staffer in the state of Vermont who did the cell phone coverage study in Vermont, very extensive one, learned how he did it, got the equipment and the software figured out. He's working with Ray Mather to obtain the equipment and what he needs at the lowest possible cost. He may need a few cell phone plans. What his plan is to set this test fixture up in his car, drive it around town on every road, and every 300 meters, the equipment will take a reading, and you'll be able to get all four cell services, get a reading on all four cell services for every 300 meters on every road in town. That's the plan. And I don't think it's happening yet. At some point, we have a list of people who have complained about their cell service in their homes or near their homes. And once we get this mapping done, the plan is to contact those citizens and ask them if they would like a team to come in and actually take a direct reading and a study of what their specific issue is. I know some of the houses that have complained are in areas that have solid cell coverage, so we're curious as to what's going on with those. Strategic Plan Commission, a lot of work there as well. I did attend the first meeting that I've sat through from beginning to end about a week ago. It's a good meeting, good group, very enthusiastic people. I've had meetings with Chuck Jones and Donna Lesh regarding the Senior Services Task Force section of the SPC. And Jeff, I'd like to have a discussion on the side with you about that. Affordable Housing Task Force was planning to present at tonight's meeting, but it's held off because of the crisis. The Southbury Training School Task Force met with a number of other people outside the particular task force, met with Hugh Sullivan and Leslie King. We had a really intense discussion on the history of the governor's task force on Southbury Training School. I think that ended about 8 years ago, but it was a very informative meeting. We learned a lot of things. One of the things we learned is that the cost to remediate and demolish the buildings at the Southbury Training School was estimated at that time as $88 million. And seeing it was 8 years ago is probably a lot higher now. PCBs are a big concern from those buildings and from other sources. Pesticides are also a concern. By now, they've probably seeped deep into the ground in very high concentrations. Apparently they use very toxic and heavy doses of pesticides for many years. So that's definitely an issue there. Roofing failures are a concern, and as the roofs fail, they're very expensive. A lot of them are slate roofs. They can't really be repaired economically, so the water is getting into the buildings, doing a lot of damage. And from what we hear, mold is eating some of the buildings from the inside out. Another concern is wetland setbacks. There's a lot of like streams and tributaries and water features on that property. And if you look at the maps and you start to look at the required setbacks that inland wetlands would impose, it actually cuts pretty severely into the amount of real estate that you can develop. Other things we talked about.
George, will the Strategic Planning Commission be coming to the board with that information?
With what information exactly?
What
Jeff?
you're going over now, will they be presenting to us? We're going to have a series of meetings, right?
Yes, I would hope so.
Okay.
I mean, I would insist that they do cover these things, and I believe they will. I see no reason why they would not.
Okay, so
I can stop. I can stop if you want.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to be coming before the board to discuss all these strategic planning initiatives and what they're looking at, then we'll schedule them in.
Hold on.
Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
Police radio refresh. There hasn't been any activity that I'm aware of. IT steering. The meeting was postponed. However, we did receive a draft of the executive summary from the analyst that took a look at the glitch we had with our IT system a few weeks ago. Road study committee, again, was postponed. That's it for me.
Selectman Betty?
Very quickly, there's been some email in regards to IPOC, and our vendor is obviously monitoring our accounts very closely. There's some rebalancing going on based on what's happened with the market. But of course, as we know, we're in very good hands with FIA. The Senior Commission, just so any seniors listening know, we are still providing transportation for now in regards to getting folks to the grocery stores, and they are planning to send a bus in those early morning hours that our local stores have created for seniors only. So if anybody's interested in that, please call down to the senior center, and they will help you, get scheduled for that. And on the lighter side of things, I'm just seeing a notice here that's relevant to economic development, and that is that as of noon tomorrow, the state has approved all these restaurants that are giving us takeout food. If they have a liquor license, they can give you takeout beverages as well. Please don't drink them on the way home. Wait till you get home. But one more way, perhaps, to make life a little easier through all this. That's all I have.
Selectman Bucksbaum?
Jason Bucksbaum. No historic meetings on LEPC. Obviously, there's been a lot of activity over the past week, and we've talked about most of it. I've been participating in EOC briefings that have been held daily. Scott's putting together a good structure, moving everything to virtual EOC. I thought it worked pretty well today, and it keeps getting refined. It's my practice, as with the tornado, and I think it's important that all of the messaging from the town come from a single source. So I won't tonight, and don't plan on ever talking about at these meetings substantively what transpires at those meetings. So because that'll come out through the town reports, which we should all share and get out there to the public. One of the things I'll mention is something that came up this week and today, and I spoke to Jeff Tinley, and that's a freedom of information issue. The members of the Board of Selectmen, all of us, had been getting invites to the EOC briefings, but there is an issue under FOIA that we cannot have a quorum of the Board of Selectmen participate in those. And that's the reason why you all received an email from Jeff Tinley this afternoon telling you not to call into it. I'm happy to continue calling into them as I can. I mean, they're gonna be daily for some time, and I'll participate when able. And if other selectmen have an interest in participating, I think we need to set up some sort of rotation, because we can only have 3 on any particular call. So, and if I can't make a call or something, I'm happy to email folks and say, hey, I'm not going to be able to make this. But we just need to be mindful of that and make sure that 4 selectmen are not on any of those calls.
Jason, if
That's
I
all I
could, while we're discussing this, I was thinking about putting it, I was gonna bring it up under other business, but I can bring it up now. So I thought about that after we've gotten off the phone, and I realized that George Bertram is my pro tem, and if I should become incapacitated during this time, George would have to take over. So I think if the selectmen agree, I think it's that George Bertram should be in on the calls, along with Jason Yu as a member of the LEPC for that. And if one or the other, for some reason, cannot make the call and won't be on the call, we'll let another selectman let them know, and we can put them in on the call if that's okay.
Emily Harrison?
Go ahead, Emily.
Jeff, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Hopefully, we won't test it. Okay, anybody else? Okay, Jason, are you done with your report?
Yeah, I'm all set, and that makes sense.
Okay. It takes some time to think about things. Sometimes it changes, and I appreciate your understanding. Selectman Harrison?
Emily Harrison. EMS committee will meet next week. As many are aware, or possibly all are aware, the library is currently closed right now. Because of that, the most recent events, including the Friends of the Library, Friends of the Southbury Public Library book sale, as well as the Jolly Beggars concert, have been postponed. They're going to continue monitoring upcoming events and postpone as needed. Additionally, some exciting news, phase 2 of the PC replacement is nearing completion, or should be completed now. I've seen a sample of their new website, which was scheduled to go live today, but likely has been postponed as well. I'm really excited about that and looking forward to everyone doing that in the near future. Additionally, they approved adding charging stations into the library. So another additional feature that once reopened, we can look forward to.
Okay, thank you. Selectman Rosen?
Parks and Rec hasn't met since our last meeting, and their meeting on March 26th has been canceled because there's no essential. I don't think there's anything essential business that they have ahead of them. Region 15, as I think I all know, Region 15 is all schools are closed through the end of the month. Pending further notice. There are conversations about online learning. And there are a lot of online resources available to parents and students at the Region 15 website. So I'd encourage people to look there. Similar to the town, they are awaiting, and I'm certainly in coordination with the town, the setting of a date for budget referendum as well. Planning was supposed to meet this week. The meeting was canceled. And I do not know if when their next meeting is scheduled for.
Okay. Next on the agenda, any other business? Do I hear any other business? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn? Name, please.
Justin
Emily.
Betty, so moved.
Justin Betty's moved.
Emily Harrison, second.
Emily Harrison is second. All in favor? I will call. George Bertram.
Aye.
Emily Harrison.
Aye.
Jason Bucksbaum.
Oh, aye. All right.
Justin Betty.
Aye.
And Mike Rosen.
Aye, and stay healthy, everybody.
Thank you, and we are adjourned.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Right.